Welcome to another FPL video. Today I'm talking about the team selection for Game Week 6. I've only got one free transfer, and I may have used it. Just a bit of a spoiler alert. I'm going to talk about my transfer plans later in this video. But first off, I'm going to start with a recap of how Game Week 5 went. And it hasn't been a great start to the season by any stretch of the imagination. But I'll delve into some of the ways we can bounce back after a potential difficult start. If you end up enjoying this video, smash the like button and subscribe for new. We're looking to get to new goals such as 25,000 subscribers. We hit 20k the other day, so thank you very much for all your support. And also a huge shout out goes to all the channel members and patrons. Your efforts are much appreciated. But let's get straight into this video, starting with a recap of Game Week 5. Whether I start Onana or Turner, the end result tends to be the same, a 2-pointer from both, and it was just a hugely disappointing affair from my goalkeepers yet again. And it's so difficult to nail these clean sheets this season, and I don't really have a great goalkeeper combination to say the least. Onana did very well in Game Week 1, and that's the only time I got a return from my goalkeeper. I'm expecting much better in the weeks to come, but Turner facing Man City away, he is not even going to be in contention to start in that game. And you've also got Vlaco Dimos knocking on the door, so I think it's only a matter of time before Turner is dropped, and I think he's had a good start to life at Nottingham Forest, but it's not looking too good from him in terms of his minutes, and hopefully does get more opportunities. But in terms of my FPL team, I don't think he's going to get anywhere near the starting 11. Thankfully, I got one clean sheet in my backline, and that was William Saliba. He was on course for 2 bonus points at one stage against Everton, but in the end, they got removed. He had a solid performance, and Arsenal with yet another clean sheet away from home. I'm still a bit concerned in these home matches, but they just beat PSV Eindhoven 4-0 in the Champions League at the Emirates. And with David Raya in goal, that's 2 clean sheets out of 2. And Ramsdale's a good goalkeeper, but he can be a bit shaky at times. And so far, David Raya has been very assured, and they are facing Tottenham next, and I'll get onto that very soon. Ideally, I wouldn't start Saliba, even with Raya in the team and this confidence that Arsenal are building. But I think Arsenal are still very solid defensively and should keep plenty of clean sheets this season and probably be right up there in terms of the most. And maybe David Raya could be in contention for the Golden Glove. But of course, that's a long way away, and you'd still back Man City to keep the most clean sheets overall. The other defenders include Ben Chilwell, who was dropped. He came on, and in the 96th minute, he made a foul and got a yellow card. So 0 points overall from Ben Chilwell, despite Chelsea keeping a clean sheet. So that was hugely frustrating, and I think it kind of summed up a lot of our weeks. But there you go, that's the way FPL can be sometimes. And my final defender was a doggy who I brought in mainly as a kind of 1-week punt against Sheffield United, but also as a rotation option. And in Game Week 6 and 7, I'm looking to bench him, but afterwards I'd be very happy to start a doggy in pretty much every single game week coming up. But a huge disappointment for Spurs to concede at home to Sheffield United, and they were on the brink of defeat, but in the last few minutes in extra time, Spurs mounted a comeback, and now in that North London derby, we've got that huge matchup, and I've got Saliba and a doggy, so things aren't looking too great in my defence, despite the fact that most of my transfers this season have been in defenders. Upon reflection, my midfield was absolutely shocking this week. Only Bukayo Saka got a return, an assist in that game, and to be honest, that was mainly Trossard with that fantastic strike, but a really well-worked goal by Arsenal against Everton, and they struggled to break them down. I think Arsenal controlled the game in most areas of the pitch, but in terms of the final third, they just couldn't really click like they did against PSV in the Champions League. But still, a 1-0 win, and Saka was involved. You can't ask for too much more, but I definitely can from the likes of Mbeumo, who blanked against Newcastle, which, to be fair, you know, Newcastle are a good team, and it's not the worst thing in the world. But Sterling blanking against Bournemouth, he was so close to scoring from that free kick, and he had another opportunity which ended up going out for a throw-in pretty much, and Jackson just can't get his shooting boots on. So Chelsea aren't clicking in the final third, but they are playing well overall in my opinion, and maybe if Pochettino is given time, and once the injured players come back, I think Chelsea could start developing into a good outfit. But in terms of FPL, you know, to be honest, even with these fixtures coming up over the next 3, I would be very happy to have 0 Chelsea players. They just don't offer enough value. Maybe one defender, because they are keeping some clean sheets, but it's not looking good from the Blues. And then you look at Bruno Fernandes getting a yellow card yet again against Brighton, and Man United were absolutely scored by the Seagulls. And to be honest, I think United started the game very well. It's a very reoccurring theme with Man United. They started well against Tottenham. They should have been 1 or 2-0 up. They didn't do it, and they ended up losing the game and get battered in the second half. The same goes with the Arsenal game as well, where they looked dangerous in the first half and then just concede possession and control to the Gunners. Against Bayern Munich in the Champions League, same thing. Good start, didn't take the lead, and then Bayern Munich go 2-0 up. And then you also have Brighton and Hove Albion. It just keeps on happening every single game, and Man United assets are very frustrating frustrating. But as I discussed in the transfer tips video, I would still keep them ahead of that Burnley game at the very least. Afterwards, of course, you can sell when they face Crystal Palace and Brentford. But against Burnley away, I think that's a great fixture for the Red Devils to bounce back. And the biggest disappointment this week for me was James Maddison, who was in contention for the captaincy. He was actually my vice, and he got a 1-pointer. Yellow card, probably very unlucky not to win a penalty as well, and that could have been an assist. But Maddison is still a quality player. He put an 8 out of 10 performance against Sheffield United. He just didn't get the attacking returns, but he still got a good chance against the likes of Arsenal and Liverpool, not to mention the great fixtures long term for Tottenham Hotspur. Things look slightly better for my forward line. Erling Haaland scored, but he missed about 5 or 6 big chances, which is just unheard of, really. And even against Werner Svesda in the Champions League, he also missed about 3 big chances and didn't score. So he needs to get his shooting boots on, which sounds really crazy for me to say about someone who literally has more goals than games played. But I think Erling Haaland should be scoring more braces and hat-tricks with the amount of chances that Man City are creating. And I have to say, Man City look almost unstoppable. I still think some teams can get results against them, but they just always create chances and they always look like a dangerous outfit. And you really need a lot of luck on the day to beat them or even to get a draw against the Citizens. But Erling Haaland should be doing better, and I think against Nottingham Forest at home, where he scored a hat-trick last season, he will deliver at least a goal or two, and that should be enough for the captaincy. My final forward was Ollie Watkins, yet another assist, and I have to say he was very lucky with this assist. I don't think it was a penalty, but it was given. Crystal Palace will feel hard done by, and I do understand that, but Ollie Watkins is a good option overall. However, with the likes of Alvarez and Awani, who are much cheaper, you can make a case for selling Ollie Watkins and using that extra 1 or 2 million to invest in other key areas of the pitch. So that's why Ollie Watkins isn't safe for me in terms of my transfers. I'll discuss that very soon. But let's talk about my rank, the points I got, and the captaincy before moving on to the team selection portion of this video. What a surprise, I captain Erling Haaland. It's just the way this game is at the moment with FPL ever since last season. I think the last time I went into a game week without Erling Haaland was in game week 1, despite me constantly advocating for Erling Haaland having a great season for Man City. I didn't really back my gut there. We all know what happened. I went for Harry Kane and the rest is history. But as soon as I saw Erling Haaland play against West Ham back in game week 1 of last season, I brought him in and he has just been the best FPL asset by some distance. Now, I think Mohamed Salah could challenge him, especially around game week 9 onwards when Liverpool have great fixtures and Man City have a quite tough run between game weeks 8 and 13, and that's a period where you could conceivably go without Erling Haaland, and certainly you can go against him for the captaincy. But for the time being, it looks like Erling Haaland captaincy every single week. He's the most reliable option, but he should have gotten many more points. I'm not even going to try to be salty or say things like this, but I genuinely believe that those that didn't captain Haaland this week were extremely lucky. He should have scored a hat-trick in my opinion, but there you go. I got 39 points in this game week, an absolute torrid time. Another red arrow down to around 1.6 million, and I haven't even got 300 overall points. So a really bad start to the season. It was looking pretty decent after the first couple of weeks, but ever since it's just been going downhill, and a wild card in a few weeks time could help me to get out of that situation. But I also want to reassess, evaluate, because there are still some very, purple patch players, some early picks that might not do as well in a couple of weeks time. So I want to reevaluate, have more time to reflect, and then make a really good wildcard team to keep on gaining the ranks and gain more green arrows. But for the time being, my team looks in good shape. It's decent on paper, but I have some big issues. For example, I've only got one Man City attacker, Erling Haaland, and the likes of Alvarez and Foden could be really good options to partner him. I've also got some fixture swings, some really tough matchups like Arsenal versus Tottenham. I've also got a lot of problems in the defenders and goalkeeper position with Onana and Turner. I've also got Chilwell, who isn't guaranteed to start against Aston Villa, Saliba facing Tottenham, Udogie facing Arsenal. Also Rico Henry, who was in my plans to start in the next couple of weeks. He is out for the entire season due to an ACL injury. So I've got so many issues in the defense despite making so many transfers in that position. So let's now go into the team selection portion of this video, and I'll talk about the one transfer I've made this week. Despite making a critical error in the Champions League, I am sticking with Onana, and this is something I discussed in the transfer tips video. I think Man United will keep 1 or 2 clean sheets over the next 4 game weeks. It might seem very stubborn on my part and very naive, but I genuinely believe that. Let's see how it turns out. And I also think there isn't a standout goalkeeper at the moment. I like Flecken, but with the injuries to Ben Mee and Rico Henry, I'm not as sure about Brentford defensively as I was at the start of the season. You've also got Leno, who, to be honest, good goalkeeper option, one of the best at 4.5 million million, but I don't trust Fulham defensively. Areola as well. Maybe you can go for that goalkeeper rotation, Areola and Leno, and you've also got Alisson as a long-term option, but I don't see a number one pick, someone who's just an absolute standout and I have to bring into my team. So for the time being, I'm keeping Onana. I'm not going to make a goalkeeper transfer, and I'd rather make some moves with more upside, and I would also want to target some attacking transfers for once because I've made so many defender moves and it hasn't paid off so far this season. Rico Henry is out for the entire season, but I haven't made a transfer in the defence. I am keeping Saliba and starting him. It would have been Rico Henry in Saliba's place with Saliba first sub, but that injury to Rico Henry has been a massive blow to my plans, unfortunately. But I'm going to keep on going with what I was planning from a week or two ago, and that means no defender transfer because I'm kind of sick of them at this point, to be quite frank. I've also got Ben Chilwell at home to Aston Villa. I think he will start, but it isn't a guarantee. It could be Colwill as a left back and Mudryk as the left winger. But if you're asking me, I think Chilwell will start as a left back. It doesn't matter if Chelsea play a back four or a back five. I think Chilwell will start, and he's got a decent chance of a return, you could argue, but Aston Villa is still a tough team. The reason why I say this is because Aston Villa haven't got a great record in away games against the so-called big teams like Newcastle and also Liverpool. And whilst Chelsea have been struggling, if they continue these level of performances and start finishing these chances, I think they can beat Aston Villa. And I know Aston Villa might be the better team at this moment in time, but I still think Chelsea are capable of winning this game, and Chilwell could be involved in that. My final defender is Pervis Estupiñán, and this is by far the best pick I have in my backline, facing Bournemouth at home, but even that isn't a guaranteed clean sheet, and my defence overall looks very shaky. But if Chilwell starts, things start to look a lot more rosier, and if Saliba was able to keep a clean sheet on top of it, then it could be a fantastic week for my backline. The fixtures aren't necessarily great for my midfield either. Bukayo Saka will also feature in the North London derby, and against PSV, they were the first team to play against Arsenal this season who actually pressed high and left spaces in behind, and they also didn't double up on Saka, and you saw the end result. So I think if Tottenham play in a similar way to PSV, play their normal game, I think it could be maybe not a similar result, but I think Arsenal could easily score 2 or 3 goals. But I genuinely think that Tottenham will be a bit more cautious and try to double up on Saka and make sure that the likes of Odegaard aren't able to dictate the game in the final third. But Bukayo Saka is still a good option in the North London derby. He has scored against them before, and he is on penalties, of course. And despite having an average start to the season in terms of performances against PSV, that was his best performance by far, and I think he could do really well in the upcoming weeks, despite facing Tottenham and Man City at home. Then we go to the other midfielders. Mbeumo as well, at home to Everton. I think that's a good fixture, probably the best any of my midfielders have, and he's got a good chance of a return. Everton aren't conceding many goals, but they are conceding a lot of chances, and you'd still back Brentford to get the victory here, but they haven't won a single game at home so far this season. I think that's 2 draws. It's time to make that right on the third occasion, and I think Mbeumo could be a huge part of that win. And I'm also going for Raheem Sterling yet again against Aston Villa, and to be honest, if I was to sell a Chelsea player this week, it would be Raheem Sterling, because I trust Chelsea more defensively than I do offensively. The only issue with that is that Chilwell isn't a guaranteed starter, whilst Raheem Sterling is at this moment in time. Then I've got Bruno Fernandes as well, away to Burnley, another really good fixture, but I think from the Man United assets this week, I think Marcus Rashford is best poised for a return. I think the way Burnley play will suit him more than a Bruno Fernandes, and of course I could be wrong, and hopefully I am, because I do have Bruno Fernandes and not Marcus Rashford. But you look at Matty Cash scoring a brace a few weeks ago back in Gameweek 3, and Heung-min Son scoring a hat-trick against Burnley. Hopefully Bruno Fernandes can get some returns against a very shaky defence, and Burnley and all the newly promoted clubs so far this season have looked very bad, to say the least. My final midfielder is James Maddison, away to Arsenal. Not a great fixture. I've got a clash as well between Saliba and Maddison, but it's still a decent midfield on paper, and the team doesn't look awful. But then again, with my start to the season, I'm not too optimistic about a green arrow. I've had the same forward line for the entire season. Erling Haaland's always going to be in there. He is facing Nottingham Forest at home. He scored a hat-trick there last season at the Etihad. And I think Erling Haaland will start and be benched in the Carabao Cup instead in midweek. But there are some people fearing that he could possibly be benched this weekend. And the same goes for a certain Argentine who I've brought in this week called Haaland Alvarez, who was man of the match for me against Fernandez Sociedad, but it did go to Rodri in the end. But Alvarez has had a great start to the season. Even in the games where he didn't play necessarily well, he is still getting the attacking returns, such as against Fulham. So I think Alvarez is a great pick. And I know the fixtures long-term aren't great, but if I'm I'm looking to wildcard around game week 8 or 9, then that's not going to matter too much. And as a 2 or 3 game week punt, I think Alvarez could be absolutely fantastic. And to be honest, I see him as a fixture-proof player. He can do well against absolutely anybody in the world for both club and country. So I'm very happy with the starting 11, despite some teething issues, such as the goalkeeper and my defensive line. And also because I've got a player from a team that can't score enough goals in Chelsea and Raheem Sterling. But it's not looking too bad, and hopefully a green arrow, because I desperately need it after this start to the season, and 3 consecutive red arrows, I believe. So it's time to right that wrong heading into game week 6. So let's now talk about the captaincy and my bench. I've got Turner in goal on the bench, and I've also got Udogie, Sula and Rico Henry. It's just a massive shame that Rico Henry got that ACL. Hopefully recovers as soon as possible. He would have been my starting 11 at home to Everton, and Saliba would have been first on my bench. It would have been a Udogie second and a Sula third. But these things happen, and that's why you can have all the plans you want. You can be meticulous as you want, stretch into every single detail, but ultimately things happen and you've got to adapt to every situation. So all that's left now is the captaincy, and for me it's between the Man City attackers, and I'm currently going for Erling Haaland, but you could make a case with the amount of chances he's missing and Alvarez's form, you could go for the Argentine instead. I don't think that's a preposterous kind of tip there, but I think Erling Haaland will start to get shooting boots on. I don't see him blanking against Nottingham Forest, to be quite frank, and you could argue that Alvarez is more subject to rotation this weekend. I certainly hope not, but there is this curse going on every single game week. I've talked about this in the streams as well, of the most transferred in player every single week blanking. So in game week 2, I think it was Ben Chilwell. Game week 3 was Mbumo. Game week 4 was Heung-min Son, or game week 5, I'm losing count here, but in game week 6, Alvarez is currently the most transferred in player, so things aren't looking too good there. Hopefully Alvarez breaks the curse and becomes the first most transferred in player this season to finally produce a return. On screen, you can see Drafthound, and the transfer they suggested to me was Ollie Watkins to Alvarez, which I have done already. And if I make it here, I transfer and optimize, it's all done, and it makes the substitutions for me as well. They put Onana over Turner, Haaland captain, Alvarez vice captain. The bench order is also exactly the same. So looks like me and Drafthound are in agreement in terms of how to structure my team. This is the first time I've seen Drafthound since making my transfer. And you've also got so many other tools, such as the player rankings, and you can literally sort it by expected points over the next 3 game weeks, or just for this game week alone, not to mention chance of scoring. And according to Drafthound, Erling Haaland is top with 71%, Salah is second, and Alvarez is third. So I agree with some of these picks near the top. I think Alvarez is certainly up there if he gets the minutes, and I think he will start. If you disagree, let me know down in the comment section below. You've also got chance of a hat-trick, which is something I've never seen from any other website, and you've also got chance of a yellow card, expected minutes. All of this is crucial when you're making your team. Alvarez is there at 90 minutes. Hopefully, Drafthound, you are correct. You've also got the fixture analysis tool, and you can use it to toggle between chance of clean sheet. So you're ranking the teams based on their defensive probabilities, and Man City are top over the next couple of game weeks. And you've also got chance of scoring 2+ goals. So that's really favoring the attacking potential, and Man City are also top. What a surprise. And you've also got the player comparison tool. You can use Alvarez versus Edouard, who's also a very popular pick. I've seen him talked about a lot in the live streams, but I still prefer Alvarez. And you've also got predicted lineups, which is another big tool they've introduced this season. So check out Drafthound. A link is in the description below. Let me now quickly show you a possible Game Week 7 team using my transfer of Alvarez in, and how things could be looking in a week's time. Things could certainly change. Who knows? I may even pull the trigger for the wild card. But I've got Onana in goal here. I've got a back 3 of Saliba, Chilwell and Estupiñán. A midfield 5 of Maddison, Saka, Mbumo, Bruno Fernandes and Sterling. And that front 2 of Alvarez and Erling Haaland. And my benches Turner, Udogie, Osula and Rico Henry. And I could make a transfer there to bolster my defence, because Rico Henry is out for the entire season, unfortunately. And in terms of captaincy, although it's very early for Game Week 7, you know, we're looking at Game Week 6, and that's not even set in stone. But Erling Haaland could be the captain in Game Week 7 with Saka as the vice. I don't see a mega alternative in Game Week 7, but around Game Weeks 9 and 10, Mohamed Salah faces Everton and Nottingham Forest at home back to back. That's where I would be going against the Erling Haaland captaincy. But first of all, I need to bring Mohamed Salah into my team, and that's something I need to think about over the next couple of game weeks. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below about my team, and also about your team situations. I'll be very interested to know And also be sure to tune in for the deadline stream on the Saturday. I think it's quite a later one compared to the usual, so we could be streaming around 11:30 a.m. UK time. You will see it if you go on my channel in a few days time. And there's also more content coming along. If this video gets to the 300 likes, there will also be a best wildcard team video tomorrow on the Friday. And also if you watch UCL Fantasy, if you play it, then there's a lot more content headed your way for the chip strategy ahead of match day 2, when we can finally play the chips, the limitless and the wildcard. And speaking of those chips, there will be a best limitless and wildcard team video for each of those chips, the team selection video, and a deadline stream yet again. So be sure to tune in for all of the UCL Fantasy and FPL content. Thank you very much for watching this video. Like the video, share around with those that love both fantasy formats, and also subscribe. We hit 20,000 the other day, and we're looking to get to new goals. We're already making great progress towards 21,000 subscribers. And you could also follow me on Twitter and Instagram, DylanRCM, and check all the links in the description below for the Patreon, Championships Discord server, and the FPL League. And also I'd highly encourage you to check out Drafthound as well. I wish you all the best of luck for Game Week 6. Enjoy the rest of the football, and I'll see you very soon.